Hey buddy, I know, I kind of just up and left you in October, but I promise this year, I'm gonna be here for you, I'm gonna be more attentive, I'm gonna be a better father figure. And before you jump to any conclusions, no, I wasn't in the tub again, alright? No, I wasn't in the tub, alright? And even if I was, like that's any of your business, okay? Big Pharma, they are constantly exaggerating the negative effects. A little tub time's good for you. It's relaxing. Ooh, oh, that's bad. Oh, that's real bad. Oh no. Yeah. Hey, CIA is making them smaller and smaller every year. Crazy, huh? It's a miracle that. Oh, there's a few of them here. Hey, they're on to me. I'm gonna go. Like I said, I'm gonna be a better father. All right. I'm just gonna be right back. Nope. Wait. I'm still here. I didn't leave you, promise. See, I'm gonna be a better father this year. Now you may be asking yourself, what in the world is going on? The deep state is watching my every move through various surveillance methods. And now you may be asking yourself again, why and how is the deep state surveilling you? I'm gonna answer half of that in this neat little manila folder I got that if ever gets out, I'm dead. Now, with every good story, this one starts with the September 11th attacks, or a little bit before that. Let me give you some background knowledge. I just want to clarify, I won't be going into any conspiracies about this. I have respect for the victims. It was a tragedy. It was a horrific, terrible tragedy, and I can't stress that enough. So, out of respect, I will not be mentioning any conspiracy theories, nothing about it being an inside job, just the facts of what happened at what times. Anyways, let's get a little background knowledge. Did you know there was supposed to be a 9/11 before 9/11? This was called the Boyinka Plot and was meant to occur in 1995. Now, the Boyinka Plot wasn't a plan to attack the World Trade Center. No, it was a plan to kill the Pope, bomb multiple airports, and then crash a plane into the CIA headquarters. Crazy shit, right? Yeah, it's wild. It's as absurd as it sounds. Thankfully, it never fell through. Now, how they originally planned for this to go down was they were going to have someone who was a member of their terrorist group do a suicide bombing on the Pope by dressing up as a priest and having a suicide bomb strapped to their chest. The death of the Pope was meant to be a distraction as they bombed multiple airports across the Pacific, which was meant to shut down air travel, so one of the hijacked planes could hit the CIA headquarters. But it never fell through, and it's all thanks to a chemical fire that occurred in a 6-story apartment building. Police were alerted to this, and they found the man inside, and that's how they discovered the Boyinka Plot. So that's a rare Filipino police W right there. They're not busy shooting people and planting weed on their corpses, but story for another time. Now, I mentioned the Boyinka Plot because it is essentially the blueprint of the September 11th terrorist attacks. The men behind this were Ramzi Youssef, who was the man behind the original World Trade Center bombing in, I believe, 1993. Could be wrong, I'm gonna flash that real quick. And Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed is the uncle of Ramzi Youssef, and after the Boyinka Plot was thankfully stopped, he fled to Afghanistan in 1996, and during that same year, he would be connected with Osama bin Laden, and through Osama bin Laden, he would help plan and execute the September 11th attacks. And during all of it, he was very insistent on using planes during the attacks. Speaking of planes, there were casualties relating to the Boyinka Plot. One test bombing of Philippine airline flight number, I apologize for this, Philippine airline flight 434, in which one person was killed and it injured another 10. So, sadly, this didn't go without bloodshed. But, anyways, on to the part that scarred our nation. Now, I would like to mention one man who, if things played out differently, could have changed the outcome of the entire world as we know it right now. One Ahmed Shah Massoud. He was fighting against the Soviet occupation of Afghanistan during the Soviet-Afghan War. He also fought the Taliban and was a part of the United Islamic Front. But most importantly, he tried to warn the European Parliament of the upcoming September 11th attacks. But he was assassinated by Al-Qaeda just 2 days before the attacks would commence, and he was killed to secure Taliban support against the United States. Now, 2 days after his assassination, 19 hijackers would split into 4 teams across American Airlines Flight 11, United Flight 175, American Airlines Flight 77, and United Flight 93. At around 8:19 a.m., Flight 11 would be hijacked, piloted by one Mohammed Atta, who would accidentally alert air traffic control of his plans and intentions at around 8:24 when he believed he was speaking to the passengers of the plane. The United States would deploy aircraft in an attempt to follow the hijacked plane. And around 8:45, United Flight 175 would be hijacked. At 8:46, Flight 11 would hit the North Tower. At 9:03 a.m., Flight 175 would hit the South Tower. President George Bush would be alerted to this at 9:05 a.m. while reading to a classroom full of children. He made his way out very calmly in an effort to not alert the children. I'm not a big fan of George Bush, but I will respect how he remained calm in that situation as to not alert the kids. At 9:28, United Flight 93 would be hijacked. At 9:37, Flight 77 hits the Pentagon in the West Wing. At 9:57, passengers on Flight 93 would begin to attempt to take back the plane. I would like to, best I can, pay respects to those on Flight 93. They did something very valiant to prevent another horrific event from occurring and possibly making the September 11th attacks far worse than what they were. But sadly, at just 2 minutes later, at 9:59 a.m., the South Tower would collapse, engulfing the nearby areas in a field of debris and taking the lives of many bystanders. At 10:02 a.m., Flight 93 crashes in a field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, after being taken back by the passengers. They gave their lives to make sure that plane would not hit another target. The destination is not officially unknown, but it's likely considered to be the United States Capitol or the White House. Again, these people were heroes. At 10:28, the North Tower would collapse, further adding to the chaos and destruction of September 11th. And 7 hours and 2 minutes later, at 5:30 p.m., after having large pieces of flaming debris fall on top of it, building number 7 would collapse too. I think it goes without saying that the 9/11 attacks were horrific. I wasn't alive for them, I'll say that. I'm still decently young. But the way I've heard people talk about it when they saw it, the way I heard my parents speak about it, the fear that they felt in that moment, it's terrible to think about. Let alone all the pain and suffering that was caused to the victims. I know, hot take, but I think terrorists are some of the lowest scum of the earth, and it's things like that just, I can't quite even describe what negative emotions fill my body when discussing something like this, but I think you understand the point. In which then it brings me into my next topic. Now, a lot of the actions taken by the United States government following the September 11th attacks, they would market was to help fight against terrorism, international, domestic. In practice, though, it seems far, far from that. Such as suspected being detained for months with no lawyers granted. Airports collecting data on foreigners, requiring fingerprints and photos on them. This is already bad enough, right? But let's get into the Patriot Act. Now, the Patriot Act was signed shortly after the September 11th attacks and allowed for the use of information collected via wiretaps and electronic surveillance to be used in a court of law. Specifically, Section 215 of the Patriot Act allows for the use of any tangible things. Now, what does this look like? Well, if you're watching this, I'm guessing you're familiar with one Edward Snowden. Edward Snowden was a contractor hired to work at the NSA, and he discovered a little thing called X-Keyscore. Now, what X-Keyscore is, it's a large database utilizing sensor networks around the world to find online info on anyone, public and private. It tracked everything. It tracked your logins, your associated accounts, your location, online activity, chats, calls, etc., etc. Accounts on your personal computer. Now, you may be wondering, how do they collect this data? I'm getting to that. Be fucking patient. Now, there's a program used by the NSA called PRISM. And PRISM was made possible under Section 702 of the FISA Act. And what PRISM basically is, it allows for the NSA to gather metadata from service providers. This includes calls, SMS messages, GPS location, things like that. Now, you may be asking yourself, why is it classified as metadata? Well, if the NSA wanted to collect calls, messages, GPS, etc., that will require individual warrants. But classifying as metadata allows for large amounts of data collection without requiring any warrants whatsoever. Now, PRISM pulled directly from various servers, such as Facebook and Verizon. Verizon was actually caught up in a very big legal lawsuit when it was found out they were giving all this data to the NSA. Now, Verizon was specifically told to give all data relating to calls taking place in the United States or between the United States and a foreign country. And it wasn't the only thing. It was, again, the SMS messages. I'm emphasizing that for a reason, but we'll get into that. Now, some of the servers that PRISM pulled from included not only Facebook and Verizon, but Google Maps and Angry Birds, of all things. This is true. This is true. But it also collected from Yahoo webcam chats. Now, what I'm going to get into more is more GCHQ, which is across the pond in Britain. But let's talk about Operation Optic Nerve. Now, Optic Nerve collected still images from devices' webcams while they used Yahoo webcam chats. Similar practices used for Skype by both GCHQ and the NSA. And if you think that's bad, which, yeah, it's terrible, let's get into upstream, shall we? Now, how upstream works is instead of collecting directly from the servers of all these providers, it physically taps into underwater fiber optic network cables to collect all data being transferred into them, and it's being directly sent up to X-Keyscore. So all the photos you thought were private, all the videos you thought weren't anything serious, everything you've done that required internet in any way whatsoever has been collected by the NSA. Very fun stuff to think about. Not dystopian in the slightest. Now, they would like to say that they only collected specific data on certain individuals. Let's get into how the emails work, how they're transferred between different servers in different areas. Now, they're often bundled together when sent through servers. So you'll have an email from person A to person B, which is bundled with an email going from person C to person D. And it's all sent in bulk over the fiber optic network cables. So even if they were only collecting data on person A for, say, a good reason, they thought, oh, this guy is a terrorist, they would collect the data from person C and person D, regardless of what they tried. Now, this was made entirely legal when they redefined collection facilities from phone numbers and emails to entire international network connections, like the end of a fiber optic cable. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, oh, let me go protect my devices, which you should. Go do that, right? Go put a little bit of tape on there. Go rip out the microphone. Go buy a ThinkPad from 2007, rip out the Wi-Fi card, and invent your own operating system. Whatever you got to do, right? But that's not going to stop anything. Let me talk to you about ALPRs. And what does ALPR stand for? Automatic License Plate Reader. ALPRs are those little cameras you see at intersections, which read license plates. Now, what the companies producing these ALPRs like to pride themselves on is stopping crime. So it's not just the license plate they're collecting. They're collecting footage constantly. They're collecting everything. So you are continuously being watched by security cameras wherever they are. And again, the NSA can either use PRISM and a Section 702 order to collect data from security cameras of any surrounding businesses. But they already have it when they're collecting all this data running through the fiber optic network cables. So yeah, we're being watched wherever you go. Now, Upstream was not the only program made by an intelligence agency to tap into fiber optic cables. Back to the GCHQ, they had Thiel, which was their program to the exact same. I want to talk about this GCHQ. A little interesting program they had called the Joint Threat Research Intelligence Group, or JTRIG for short. Let me tell you some of their programs they had in this. Astral Projection and Twilight Arrow, Remote GSM Internet Proxy using VPN and Tor network, Airwolf, YouTube profile video and comment collection, Birdsong, automatic Twitter updates, Bird Strike, Twitter profile and post collection, Dancing Bear, obtains the location of Wi-Fi access points, Goodfellow, framework for online public data collection, Hacienda, a port scanning tool capable of scanning regions or entire countries and sends all the data to their Earthling database, which acts a little bit similar to XKeyscore. Mouth, a tool for collecting archive.com download history. Silver Spectre, Nmap scanning on Tor networks. Spring Bishop, allows collection of private Facebook photos. Tanner, grabs IPs of internet cafes. Tracerfire, office document that collects all info on the machine it's downloaded on. Files, logs, location, device type, etc. Top Hat, grabs location of cell towers and Wi-Fi locations. Angry Pirate, permanently disables a user's profile on their personal computer, no longer allowing that user to sign in. Bombay, used to artificially boost website rankings. Burlesque, sends spoofed SMS messages. That's why I said keep it in mind. That's terrifying to think about. Because I mean, if it's coming from your number, it's hard to deny, right? You can't just say, oh, well, the NSA spoofed my messages. That's very hard to prove, and the average person is going to think you're just a lying piece of shit. But it's real, it's possible, and it's definitely happened. Deerstalker finds satellite location and GSM phones using silent calling. Now, how silent calling works is basically how it sounds. It calls you, and you have no idea what it is. You don't get an alert. You're not aware of it at all. But they are calling your butts. Gateway, artificially boost website traffic. Gestator, artificially pushes media on various websites. Scrapped Challenge, spoofs emails on BlackBerry phones specifically. Silverboard, removal and suppression of content. Slipstream, inflates views on websites. Tornado Alley, an executable file disguised as an Excel spreadsheet that runs in the background. Elate, an eBay monitoring tool. Giles, a JTRIG web browser. Tanglefoot, a mass search tool for a person's online presence. Changeling, spoofs emails under any email address. So, just as bad as the SMS messages. Havoc, clones any website. Longshot, file upload and sharing website. Nightcrawler, public online group for reporting various sketchy websites. Piss Tricks. Yeah, that's the name they chose. An image sharing website. Now, what does this mean? Well, dead internet theory has been around since the early 2000s. Everything you see has been filtered and kind of mellowed down, a little sweetened. It also means all the devices you own are not your own. It can be shut down by intelligence groups whenever they please. It means everything that you do is monitored and collected. Now, what else I'd like to get into is what kind of people will be behind this? What kind of person would be seeing my every move? Who's going through all this data? Let's get into the actual fucking Antichrist, shall we? Peter Thiel. Now, Peter Thiel was born October 11th, 1967 in Frankfurt, West Germany. But he moved to the United States with his parents at the age of 1, and then moved to a little small town in South Africa in 1971 called Swakopmund, which I doubt I'm pronouncing correctly. Now, again, Swakopmund is, just a small town. That's. Well, I mean, that's a long time ago. It's, oh my God, they didn't lie. All right. Well, it's very safe to say that Swakopmund was a very far-right-leaning conservative town. The community celebrated Hitler's birthday like a holiday, and citizens would often greet each other with "Hail Hitler." And the community, along with Thiel's family, was very, very pro-apartheid at the time. They still are. Now, Thiel's schooling, while in South Africa, very much reflected apartheid ideals at the time, along with Nazi ideals. And this would later go on to shape who he would be as a person in the rest of his schooling career, which is an outcast nerd. His entire school would describe him as such. Big Dungeons and Dragons fan, by the way. In middle school, he read people like Rand and admired Nixon and Reagan. So a chud, pretty much. This guy was insufferable. Now, Peter Thiel being as far right as he is, you think he would have gone to a school to reflect those views, instead of somewhere like Stanford University, which at the time when he was at a college age was very, very anti-apartheid. So I just imagine he would stay far right. And oh no, he went to Stanford of all places, the liberal hotbed of colleges in the United States at the time, and where he would take philosophy. Loser. Now, one of the classes he was taking at the time was called Western Culture, which would later be replaced with the class Culture, Ideas, and Values, which, honestly doesn't seem that bad. You're reviewing a lot of different stuff. Well, Thiel thought it was the end of the fucking world because he started the Stanford Review, which was, those crappy debate bros who later founded their shitty little corporations like the Turning Point USA bullshit. This was it was like the soft launch of that. How Thiel marketed it, it was the challenging view, the one who wanted to ask questions about the values held at Stanford. And to do this, it argued against adding black authors to Western culture and defended a statutory rape that was later found guilty. So anyways, he graduated in 1989 and attended Stanford Law School before graduating in 1992 with a Juris Doctor degree. Now, let's talk about how he got the fund he has and how he got to where he is today. He mostly worked as a law clerk after graduating for Judge James Larry Edmondson. In 1993, he wrote speeches for Senator William Bennett. But in 1996, he would invest in the dot-com bubble, which would generate a lot of funds for him. So yeah, it was a little hedge fund maybe. Now, in all of his investing prowess, he would give $100,000 to his buddy Luke Nosek, who would later blow it. But Nosek introduced Thiel to Max Levchin, which then Thiel gave Levchin another $100,000 for a company called FieldLink, which would raise $4.5 million by 1999. FieldLink would be renamed to Confinity, and the three together would launch a small company known as PayPal in 1999, which would then merge with an even bigger loser, Elon Musk's X.com, in 2000. Now, when PayPal merged with X.com, they had some very notable investors, such as Nokia, well known for that one phone and their Arab ringtone, and Deutsche Bank, which is well known for wire transferring $15 million to one of Jeffrey Epstein's accounts post-mortem. This is a private account that was not known by the public, not known by any of these companies, and not known by any of his accomplices. And then after that $50 million hit, it was later transferred to an anonymous Swiss bank account. Now, this was claimed to handle bills and other such fees, but it's $15 million. I'm sorry, did they leave the power running after he died or something? But anyways, that's a story for another time. Now, it would also be bought by eBay for $1.5 billion, which is a lot of money, which would go to Peter Thiel's new hedge fund, Clarium. I don't know. It's weird rich people stuff. I don't like the rich. Anyways, using this hedge fund, Peter Thiel was able to amass a large amount of money. And in 2003, he started a very, very infamous company called Palantir. Now, where Peter Thiel got the idea for Palantir, he thought he could use the practices of Palantir based off of their practices on how PayPal fought fraud. Let's get into some of those practices, shall we? Now, how it started was they were hired by the CIA to use all the data they collected from the NSA through PRISM, through Upstream, and compile it into one singular database to scan through it for possible terrorist threats. How it's currently going is that it collects and compiles data on immigrants using artificial intelligence. Yeah, let that sit with you for a second. Let me just simmer. Alright, also let it be known that Stephen Miller, let's picture him right there now, the head architect on Trump's immigration policy, has a large stake in Palantir. Now, let's go back to Immigration OS though. How it works is it wants to prioritize so-called violent criminals. Again, we're using the AI to decide who's a violent criminal or not. Now, Palantir has claimed that they just make the tools. What they forgot to mention is that they make the criteria and priorities in their system. Now, think about this. ICE has already had countless false flags. People who were naturally born in the United States, people who are full-blooded American citizens, born here or not, were picked up by ICE. And I'm just thinking to myself, how much of this was caused by an AI hallucination? Well, let's, if we want to get back into AI hallucinations, let's look at an investigation done by ProPublica in 2016. Now, there was a company called Northpoint that had a tool called Compass, which was used for risk assessment and judging if a criminal was a likely repeat offender. Now, this was widely used in the criminal justice system, but it had a really, really big apparent flaw. It was nearly twice as likely to label black defendants incorrectly as guilty and to be possibly repeat offenders. Now, Compass also labeled white defendants as less likely to be repeat offenders than similarly scored black defendants. Let's get into another one of the programs called Gotham, which is used like Immigration OS by various government organizations and police organizations, which it makes profiles of US citizens, not even criminals, just citizens. It collects metadata, social media data, addresses, financial records, open source intel, locations, anything PRISM or Upstream related. Collects this data, brings it together, forms profiles on everyone. Now, the last thing I'd like to hit on is NSPM 7, in which President Donald Trump declared that Antifa would be a terrorist organization, or classified as a terrorist organization, I apologize. It would be classified as a terrorist organization, and what that shows is that he has the power to just say who is and isn't a terrorist. Now, just mix those few little objects in your mind. We got mass surveillance, always knowing where you are, and the ability to be declared a terrorist if you speak out against the current status quo, which will probably lead to mass arrests. Not probably, it is. It is going to lead to mass arrest. Yeah, very, very scary stuff. You know, this is usually the part of the video right at the end where I like to say, oh, what can we do to help defend against this? Like I said, protect your devices. I would recommend a Faraday bag if you don't have one. You know, little doomsday prepping. But there's not much we can do for this one. I mean, the surveillance state is pretty heavily extended. Everything we do online or in public is collected. So unless you want to be shut in your house at all times and somehow still survive, or go live off the grid, that's also an option. There's not much you can passively do to stop this. I mean, you can go out there, you can protest, you can vote. I mean, seeing how it's looking for the midterm elections right now and the practices that are probably going to be implemented for those, I'm a little worried about voting, and you should be too. Or, you know, just have fun with it, I guess. Laugh, make jokes. In the face of adversary, tyranny, stuff like this, the last thing they want you to do is be happy. If anything, you should be concerned about all these practices, but I would recommend going out, having a good time with your friends, actively standing up against the system, and having a smile on your face while you do it. Go protest, go have a good time, go be alive. Well, anyways, that's all I have for now. Like I said, I'm going to be a way better father figure than I was, okay? But until then, there you are, still after my ass. No, I will not answer that. I'll see you in about 4 months. Yeah.